Welcome to BYU Radio's Big Stories, a show dedicated to the incredible tales surrounding the opponents of the BYU Cougars. I'm your host, Cleon Wall.
A coach can have such a tremendous impact on a young adult's life.
Chauncey Franks knows a little about coaching.
I coached college football. My goal was I wanted to be the first African-American coach to win a national championship in football. But in the process of coaching, God showed me that it was not about the X's and O's, but it was about the heart and souls of young men and women that he really began to press upon in my life.
In this episode, how Chauncey and the Fellowship of Christian Athletes is helping the TCU Horned Frogs see themselves in a different light.
What I preach over and over and over again is your performance today doesn't define you.
Chauncey Franks heard plenty of sermons growing up.
My father was a pastor of a church. Both my grandfathers were pastors. So I grew up in church, my dad would practice his Sunday morning service message with us. We would be playing Tecmo Bowl, and next thing you know, my dad is coming in with his Bible and his sermon strip and giving us his message for the week. But when I got to college at Midwestern State University, put my faith on the back burner. Really became a typical college student that enjoyed college life to the fullest.
Part of Frank's college life was fighting football foes as an MSU offensive lineman.
A lot of my identity was in my sports. My identity was in my fraternity, and got to graduate school and knew that my life was missing something. And I knew that faith being a part of it, I wasn't really embracing the faith aspect of it. And I think for me at that time, I didn't really see a lot of young adults who were walking their relationship with Christ.
And then Chauncey ran into Danica.
She invited me to church, and I said, hey, I'll go to church. And so started going to church and started hanging out with a group of young adults who were serious about their faith, who were serious in growing their relationship with Christ. And it was that group that God really touched my heart to open up my eyes to his love and his grace. And that's where my walk with Christ started.
Chauncey eventually married Danica and left his job as a college football coach so that he could bring young men and women to Jesus Christ. But he couldn't get coaching in sports out of his mind.
One of the things I was praying about, I still wanted to be around coaches and athletes. I wanted to be in an environment where you have the locker room and the impact that a coach, the community that you have inside the locker room. My pastor at that time was telling me about a ministry called Fellowship of Christian Athletes. I didn't know much about FCA growing up. I met some guys who work with FCA and began to hear their hearts and what they're doing. And I was like, man, this is what I want to do. I want to impact the lives of coaches and athletes. And so God opened up the door for me to come on FCA staff.
The Fellowship of Christian Athletes was founded in 1954 by former Oklahoma State basketball coach Don McClellan. His desire? For athletes and coaches to promote the transforming power of Jesus Christ. The FCA is so much more than football players and volleyball stars witnessing to others that they are Christians. It's about being there to help anyone along life's journey.
We call ourselves character coaches, and a big thing of what we do here is the ministry of presence.
We want to be present in their lives when they're practicing and they have a hard day.
FCA character coach Carrie Casey primarily works with female athletes.
I went to volleyball practice and had a girl crying to me after, and it's like, you got to be there to be in those moments to minister to them.
We were hanging out on the sidelines. We do pregame chapels that's voluntary for our team, but we'll have about 80% of our players and coaches that come to a pregame chapel.
Game days when they're home in person, I'll lead a little devotional. And when they travel, we just do it over Zoom. My goal is that I am helping people learn what it means to be a disciple and to make disciples, and that lasts a lifetime.
Carrie Casey is just such an awesome leader and role model for me.
Sutton McTavish is a TCU beach volleyball player.
She's the one who's really taught me how to disciple people and how to teach others in their faith. She's always been there, always someone that I know I can talk to, and she has always helped me be accountable for everything, like whether that be school, volleyball, but mainly importantly, my relationship with Jesus, just always asking me how I'm doing with Jesus this week, or like, have I been praying? Have I been in the Word? So she's just been that constant for me, and I'm really thankful for her.
I'm Riley Self. I'm with TCU football. We have so many things that we have to pay attention to here. I mean, we've got football, we've got our sports and all other points. We've got academics, we've got to stay on that, and we've got our own social life. So having a spiritual guide like Coleman and Chauncey, Carrie, Mitchell, just having them there to just kind of nudge us and be like, hey, make sure, make sure you're really diving deep. You know, get in the Word. Like, you know, say a prayer and then maybe meditate a little bit more. You know, think about things from, you know, God's perspective as much as you can, and that's just a big thing, because you get lost. You get lost sometimes in just all the stress and just everything that you're doing. And whenever you have that little nudge there, it's like, okay, yeah, let me get back on track.
I've seen God ordain conversations that I didn't have a meeting set up. I'm just standing there right there on the sideline on the practice field, and a young man comes up, hey, coach, can we talk after practice today? Or it can be just right there in that moment where a young man begins to share what's on their heart. And this also helps, too, that when they know that, hey, we're there to coach their life, you know, that we're there to help them to be successful, not only on the field, but we want to help them to be successful in life. The ultimate goal and transforming effect of FCA is to produce life change. That we want to help students see their lives change through the love of Jesus Christ. We want to pour into them, to disciple them, that they too may go and disciple others.
Monday night is one of those times FCA helps to transform the Horned Frogs into disciples. It's a group gathering they call the Huddle.
We really try to use that time period to, one, have fellowship. We think it is important for our students to live in community. We use that time to pour God's word into their lives, into their hearts and their souls. And then we use that time also too to give them time to reflect. We'll have small groups afterwards where they can process what the message was about and then think about, hey, how do we put this into action?
Our saying is no perfect people allowed.
Summer Holt played soccer at TCU.
And like that's fully resembled wherever we're meeting. It's like everybody's just coming and saying, this is where I am, this is me right now, this is where I'm at with God.
I think oftentimes for young adults, they feel like, hey, I got to get my life together before I can start my walk with God. I'm like, no, like God meets us right where we're at, and that we're nowhere near perfect. And so we want to diffuse a student feeling like they got to have it all together before they come together.
No perfect people allowed, which means everyone can come. The only person that's perfect is Jesus. My name is Cory. I'm on the track and field team here at TCU. I got baptized at the end of my senior year of high school. My freshman year, I got lost of some sorts. I feel like I was growing distant from God. And one of my friends was just like, hey, Cory, like, do you just want to come to church? Because I had been struggling to find the right place for me. And so I did, and I was like, you know what? Like, this is what I'm putting my time and my effort into, and it's really getting to know God and developing my relationship with Him. And so I did that. I got a calling to come to FCA. I mean, going to church and going to FCA has really has allowed me to really grow my relationship with Jesus, and I can understand, like, and see the things that He's doing in my life. And it's really just amazing to see how far I've come and how much I now realize that God just loves me and everyone else.
I don't know how people do college athletics without God. Like, props to them for being able to figure it out on their own, but I couldn't do it. I don't know if I'd still be playing soccer. I don't know what I would be doing if I didn't have God, but He's like the reason why I've been able to grow into the person that I feel like He designed me to be, just by walking with Him every day.
I mean, sports shapes us. I mean, sports, they teach us discipline, they teach us character, they teach us to sacrifice, they teach us to love each other, they teach us to work for something that's greater than ourselves.
And for Chauncey Franks, sports and faith in God go hand in hand.
It's important because it gives a student athlete something greater to focus on and not themselves. It gives them the ability to recognize that, hey, God has given me this talent. God has given me this platform. How do I use it to glorify God? Because I think the pressures of what student athletes face today is that they can have a great game and millions of people will praise them. And they can next week have a bad game and those same individuals will tear them down. And I love to be able to help our kids say, hey, God believed in you in such a way that He gave you your talent to play your particular sport, and He believes in you. And so you're successful, however what happens on the scoreboard. What your responsibility is to go out there and to give your best. It's to honor God in your attitude, your character, your play, your dedication, giving it all. Because that's just a great way of saying, hey, God, thank you for the opportunity of being a collegiate athlete.
Thanks for listening to BYU Radio's Big Stories. This episode was produced by Nathan Cannon and me, Cleon Wall. Music and post-production by Kevin West. Make sure you watch BYUtv's Big Stories by logging on to BYUSN.com. Big Stories is a production of BYU Radio.